The morning sun stretched long shadows across the quiet fields of New Haven Colony. Jake Morrison stepped down from the transport shuttle, boots sinking into the soft soil of a world that, at first glance, looked like paradise. The sky was blue-green, the air smelled of grass and grain, and the distant horizon shimmered with rivers that glowed under the early light. From orbit, New Haven seemed peaceful, almost idyllic. But Jake knew the truth. This was not just another colony. This was the edge. The farthest outpost of humanity. 50,000 men, women, and children had built their lives here, in the middle of space claimed by the Zaffron Imperium. And the Zaffrons did not forgive trespass. Jake had not come for a friendly inspection. He had been sent here to assess defenses. And he already knew the truth, there were none worth mentioning. Rick Parker, the colony administrator, met him at the landing pad. Rick was a broad-shouldered man, hands calloused from work, face lined with years of worry. Farmers sold produce in open-air markets. Shopkeepers adjusted their signs, and laughter spilled from cafes. The colony had been built to remind its people of old Earth, green fields, wooden houses, simple pleasures. On the hospital steps, Dr. Susan Brooks waved to Jake. She had been his friend since academy days, now the only surgeon within 100 light-years. Her smile brought him comfort, but also a stab of dread. Seeing her here reminded him what was truly at stake. Every week, they fly closer, Rick muttered as they reached his office. Zaffron patrols. They don't hail us. Don't land. Just, pass through. Like they already own the place. Jake nodded grimly. He had studied the reports. This was the same pattern the Zaffrons had followed before annihilating the Kelleran colonies, patrols first, then closer surveillance, then demands to evacuate, and finally, orbital fire. Have you started evacuation plans? Jake asked. Rick gave a bitter laugh. With what ships? We've got 6 freighters, a couple of shuttles. Moving 50,000 people would take months. They won't give us months. That evening, Jake walked alone through the colony's residential district. Homes glowed warm with lamplight. Families ate together, children chased one another through streets, and teenagers lounged in the parks. To them, New Haven was safe, just another human world. They could not imagine the death already moving toward them from the stars. Susan invited him to dinner at her cabin on the edge of town. They sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and violet. You look more worried than usual, she said. Jake sighed. Earth thinks the Zaffrons might strike soon. And if they do, we don't have a chance. Our fleet is too small. Our weapons, toys compared to theirs. If they come, we can't stop them. Susan looked away at the horizon. I came here because I thought it would be safer than Earth. No wars. No politics. Just, life. Funny how wrong you can be. The next morning, before Jake could begin his inspection of the colony's early warning stations, the alarm sounded. The colony's long-range sensors had detected ships. Not one. Not a patrol. A fleet. Rick's voice cracked through the comm system, all citizens remain in your homes. This is not a drill. Incoming vessels of unknown origin. Jake ran to the command center. On the holographic display, 50 Zaffron warships burned at the edge of the system, their crystalline hulls gleaming like shards of cold light. The readings showed impossible energy levels. Weapons capable of cracking planets. Shields that no known technology had pierced. Are they answering our hails? Jake demanded. Nothing, the comms officer whispered. Rick's face was pale. How long until they reach us? 6 hours. 6 hours. Barely enough time to send a final message to Earth. Not nearly enough to save anyone here. Jake stared at the display. He knew what was coming. The Zaffrons had not come to negotiate. Not to make demands. They had come to burn. 3 hours later, New Haven's last transmission went out. Across Earth and every human colony, the words repeated endlessly, carried on every channel, burned into the minds of billions. Rick Parker's voice, steady despite the chaos behind him. They came without warning. 50,000 civilians. They're burning everything. Tell Earth we died as humans. Tell them to remember New Haven. Then the static. And silence. In the Oval Office, President William Hayes watched the destruction unfold on secure feeds. He saw children fleeing collapsing buildings. Families huddled as plasma fire rained from the skies. He saw Dr. Susan Brooks, desperately trying to save patients, as the hospital itself collapsed in flames. He would never forget those images. Humanity would never forget them. Defense Secretary Greg Murphy entered, face like stone. Preliminary reports confirm it. Complete orbital bombardment. Plasma weapons used to superheat the atmosphere. Nothing survived. 50,000 dead. 6 hours. The president turned away, fists clenched, voice low. And the Galactic Council? The usual. Condolences. Calls for restraint. They're treating it like a natural disaster, not an act of genocide. The rage in Hayes' chest was cold, deliberate. Then we stand alone. Murphy hesitated. Sir, we do have another option. The room fell silent. The Titan Project. For 2 decades, it had been only rumor. A whisper of humanity's greatest secret, buried in asteroid belts and hollow moons. A project so vast and improbable that most had dismissed it as conspiracy. But Titan was real. Admiral Paul Brooks, gray-haired and calm, arrived with files so classified that few even knew they existed. He brought holograms that reshaped the room with scale beyond comprehension. Hidden shipyards. Automated factories. Resource fields that dwarfed entire colonies. We've been preparing, Admiral Brooks said softly. Preparing for the day humanity faced extinction. President Hayes stared at the projections, and the promise they carried. How many ships? The Admiral's voice was steady. When complete, 500,000. Prometheus-class dreadnoughts. Each one 15 kilometers long. Each one armed with enough firepower to erase worlds. The ashes of New Haven still drifted in orbit, silent testimony to what the galaxy thought of humanity's weakness. But deep within hidden shipyards, the forges of war had already begun to burn. Backhand index pointing right. If you've been drawn into this story, let me know in the comments, would you side with vengeance, or with restraint? And if you want to see where humanity's journey goes next, make sure you're subscribed, because part 2 will reveal the Titan Project's true purpose, and the price of awakening a sleeping giant. The galaxy believed New Haven's destruction would break humanity. 50,000 souls lost in fire, erased in less than a day. To the Zaffron Imperium, it was a message: humans do not belong among the stars. But the message had the opposite effect. Across Earth, grief hardened into fury. Across the colonies, sorrow became silence, not the silence of surrender, but of preparation. And deep within the asteroid belts and hollow moons where no eyes dared look, the forges of humanity roared to life. The Titan Project was no myth. It was real. Admiral Paul Brooks stood inside the command chamber of Erebus Station, a black citadel carved into the bones of a dead asteroid. Before him stretched the skeletal frame of a warship so vast it dwarfed mountains. 15 kilometers from prow to stern, armed with particle lances, singularity warheads, and armor thicker than the shields of any alien dreadnought. This was Prometheus 001, the first Titan. It would not be the last. All across the hidden facilities, buried under oceans, hidden behind gas giant rings, disguised as mining outposts, thousands of automated factories had been working in silence for decades. Mining raw ore. Refining metals. Constructing the bones of a fleet humanity was never meant to wield. When complete, there would be 500,000 Titans. Not just ships, civilizations in themselves. Each one carrying farms, foundries, laboratories, entire populations. Each one designed to survive alone, even if Earth itself fell. But why had humanity built this secret armada in the first place? It was not out of arrogance. Not out of conquest. It was out of memory. Humanity had not forgotten its own history, the centuries of empire, war, and collapse. They knew one truth better than any species in the galaxy: power respects power. And the moment humans set foot beyond their system, they knew conflict was inevitable. The Zaphrons had only proven them right. President Hayes addressed the Council of Nations in a speech that would be remembered for millennia. The broadcast reached every colony, every habitat, every hidden outpost. They thought New Haven would frighten us. That we would bow, as others have bowed. But humanity does not bow. We rise. We endure. And when we are struck, we do not forget, we build. To the Imperium, we are prey. To the Council, we are fragile. Let them believe it. Let them believe we are broken. For even now, in the shadows, the Titans awaken. Jake Morrison watched the speech from Aegis Station, one of the Titan Project's smaller shipyards. He had survived New Haven by accident, pulled away just days before the bombardment. Now he stood among the silent skeletons of ships the size of cities, their hulls bristling with weapons never before tested. It did not feel like victory. It felt like a terrible promise. Dr. Susan Brooks' face haunted him. Rick Parker's last transmission still echoed in his mind. 50,000 dead, and soon, millions more might follow if humanity unleashed what it had built. Was this justice? Or vengeance? Jake wasn't sure. The first completed Titan launched on the anniversary of New Haven's fall. Prometheus 001 drifted from its cradle, engines lighting with the power of a small sun. Its passage warped space, a vessel so massive it bent gravity itself. No public ceremony marked its birth. No parades. No speeches. Only silence. Because humanity had chosen a different kind of war. Not one of open battle. Not yet. Instead, they would strike at the mind of the galaxy. The Zaphron Imperium thrived on fear. They ruled by intimidation, by showing their enemies that resistance was pointless. They had crushed dozens of civilizations this way. No one had ever fought back. But now, strange signals began to appear across their empire. Fleets reported ghost contacts. Entire starbases swore they saw vast shadows drifting in the void, only to vanish moments later. Mining colonies received transmissions in a dead human language, warning them to evacuate before the fire returned. At first, the Zaphron rulers dismissed it as rebellion. Then as malfunction. But the report spread too widely, too quickly. It was calculated. It was deliberate. It was psychological war. The Titans did not reveal themselves openly. Instead, they operated like whispers in the dark. A single Zaphron patrol vanished near the edge of their own territory, its wreckage never found. A warship docked for repairs was discovered days later, drifting and gutted, its crew gone without a trace. Rumors spread among the Imperium's soldiers. Some claimed the humans had summoned demons. Others swore they had built ships the size of moons. The stories contradicted each other, but they all carried the same weight. The humans are not weak. The humans are watching. And fear began to spread, not in the conquered species, but in the hearts of their conquerors. Back on Earth, Jake met again with Admiral Brooks. Why the secrecy? Jake demanded. We could rally allies with this fleet. We could prove we're strong enough to stand. The Admiral's gaze was cold, steady. Strength shown too soon invites a killing blow. Do you think the Imperium will hesitate to send their full armada if they knew what we had? No. Let them underestimate us. Let them think New Haven broke us. The longer they believe the lie, the more time we have to finish the Titans. Jake wanted to argue, but deep down, he knew the Admiral was right. This was not just war. This was a game of perception. A war of shadows and whispers. Yet there were others watching. Not the Zafrans. Not humanity. A third voice. The Harari. They were an old race, one of the few still neutral in the galactic order. Bird-like in form, with eyes like polished glass, the Harari had observed humanity with a fascination bordering on reverence. And when the first Titan launched, they sent a single message to Earth. A warning. You are not the first to rise against the Imperium. But if you succeed where others failed, know this, the Zafrans are not the true enemy. Beyond them lies a darkness older than empires. Older than stars. And if you wake it, even your Titans will not save you. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The galaxy believed them broken. The Imperium believed them weak. But in silence, in shadow, the Titans were awakening. And the greatest war in history was about to begin. What would you do in humanity's place? Stay hidden, building strength in silence. Or strike now, revealing the Titans to a galaxy that underestimates us? Tell me in the comments below. The Titans moved in silence. One by one, they left their hidden shipyards. Colossal silhouettes drifting through the void like shadows of forgotten gods. Each launch shook the balance of the galaxy, though no one yet realized it. To the Zafran Imperium, humanity remained fractured and grieving. Their intelligence networks reported only despair. Their analysts insisted the humans would not recover. But their soldiers whispered different stories. Of ships that appeared and vanished without trace. Of fleets destroyed without firing a shot. Of voices in the comms, human voices, warning them to flee before the fire came. The Imperium laughed in public. But in private, they trembled. Jake Morrison stood aboard Prometheus 001, gazing at the starfield beyond. Even within its colossal hull, he felt small. Cities thrived inside this ship. Families walked streets, children learned in schools, farmers tended to crops, all within armored walls thicker than any fortress. It was not just a warship. It was a world. And yet, Jake wondered, what are we becoming? New Haven had burned. Humanity had answered with vengeance. But in building Titans, these titanic vessels of steel and fury, were they ensuring survival? Or were they forging themselves into the very monsters they sought to resist? The Harari had spoken only once. Their message replayed endlessly in Jake's mind. You are not the first to rise. Beyond the Imperium lies a darkness older than stars. At first, humanity dismissed it as superstition. Another alien myth meant to frighten them. But as Titan patrols pushed farther into the uncharted void, they began to encounter things no myth could explain. Derelict star systems where suns had been extinguished, not by natural collapse, but by design. Planets hollowed out, not by mining, but by something deeper, surgical. Precise. Entire civilizations erased, leaving only silence. And across these dead systems, ruins. Vast, cold structures stretching across space like the bones of giants. Some shaped like rings around dead stars. Others like lattices spanning entire orbits. They were not Zafran. They were not Harari. They belonged to something else. Admiral Brooks convened the Titan Council. Leaders, scientists, and captains gathered within the core chamber of Prometheus 001. What you see before you, Brooks began, gesturing to the hologram, a starfield littered with ruins, is evidence of an intelligence older than the Imperium. The Harari call them the architects. They do not rule. They do not speak. They erase. Entire galaxies reduced to silence. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some argued it was impossible. Others insisted it was ancient history. But Brooks' voice cut through the noise. If they return, our war with the Imperium will mean nothing. Humanity must prepare for more than vengeance. We must prepare for survival. Jake struggled to accept it. For months, he had carried the memory of New Haven, the faces of the dead, the screams over the comms, the burning light of a colony erased. He had devoted himself to vengeance. But now, staring at the ruins of civilizations long forgotten, he realized, New Haven was a single spark in a far greater storm. What if humanity was only waking something the galaxy had long feared to name? The Imperium, oblivious to this deeper danger, continued its hunt. Their fleets pressed harder against the colonies, desperate to crush the humans before their whispers became reality. Yet, the more they struck, the more fear spread within their own ranks. The Titans began to reveal themselves, not fully, but in flashes. A single ship appearing in orbit above a besieged colony, its silhouette blotting out the sky. A single shot tearing through an enemy dreadnought, then vanishing into silence. To the galaxy, it was the return of a forgotten myth. A species once dismissed as fragile was now striking terror into the empire that ruled them. But in the ruins of an extinct star system, a Titan patrol discovered something far more dangerous. A structure larger than any ship. A lattice of black stone and silver metal, orbiting the corpse of a star long extinguished. Its surface glowed faintly, as though pulsing with the heartbeat of something not quite dead. The Harari had a name for it. The Sleeping Forge. It was not abandoned. It was not silent. It was, waiting. Jake stood on the observation deck as the forge came into view. It filled the screens, an impossible geometry stretching farther than the eye could follow. It was not built for life. It was not built for beauty. It was built for function. For purpose. And in that moment, Jake understood the Harari's warning. Humanity had not been hidden. They had been spared. For 500,000 years, the galaxy had been quiet, because the architects were sleeping. And if humanity's war with the Imperium grew loud enough, the architects would awaken once more. Admiral Brooks' final words echoed through the Titan fleet. We built the Titans to protect ourselves from the Imperium. But if the architects rise, then humanity is no longer fighting for vengeance. We are fighting for existence itself. The Titans sailed on, vast and silent against the void. The Imperium plotted vengeance. The Harari watched with dread. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the ruins of forgotten empires, something ancient began to stir. What do you think the architects are? Guardians of order? Or destroyers of life itself? Share your thoughts below, and if you want to follow humanity's path through shadows, vengeance, and survival, make sure to subscribe.